What a ball game by Michigan, and welcome back to the show in studio. Some people asking, James, where you been? I addressed that in yesterday's show from my living room, but we're approaching 28,000 subscribers, and I feel like these next 3.5 months leading up to the national championship game, January 9th, Houston or bust, are going to be so magical. Michigan is the talk of the college football world today here on Sunday. So go ahead and give me a subscribe to the channel if you've yet to do so. I think you're going to like what we have here at the Michigan Football Report. It's October 1st. We'll have video every single day this month, November, December, through the national title game, all the way through signing day in February. I promise you this time. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're getting on close to 28,000 subscribers. We need 154 more. So hit that subscribe button, and you will not regret it. We are going to go over my Michigan football overreaction Sunday. 5 things that everybody in the Michigan football community is talking about. And I've got a bunch of guys to add to Yoder's Michigan football dogs. It's all coming up in the Michigan Football Report by Chat Sports right now. Overreaction Sunday, back in the studio. You guys know what I told you about construction going on everywhere, Jack. We've been getting kicked out of studios trying to be nice guys. Construction people saying, it'll be ready tomorrow, it'll be ready tomorrow. Well, permits, city planners, all this stuff. But October 1st, we should be good to go to have our own studio space all football season long going forward. So I'm going to take you through the 5 things that I think people were overreacting to, talking about in a good way, most of them, maybe one bad one after yesterday's 45-7 win over Nebraska. But I'll ask you guys this question. Give me your biggest overreaction from yesterday's 45-7 win. I mean, most people were saying how positive it was, how Michigan looked locked in, how they went in the road, they took care of business, they dominated. Whatever you guys think, whether it's, hey, the offense is clicking, this offensive line is the one Michigan needs, where's the Don? Let me know what you guys are thinking. JJ for Heisman. I'll put my Heisman list out on Twitter on Monday. I think JJ is going to reemerge on that list after missing it, I think, the last couple of weeks. So go down in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking, the biggest thing you're overreacting to after yesterday's blowout road win. First overreaction is Michigan should be ranked number 1 in the polls. This is the only team in college football that has won every single game by 24 points or more. Washington was also like that till yesterday. They squeaked one out to Arizona by like 7 or 14 points, something like that, late night out on the West Coast. Take a look at this tweet from an obviously overzealous Michigan football fan, Jamez Yoder, no relation, says Georgia wins, and this is after Georgia wins 27-20, but Michigan should be number 1. Now, the Bulldogs have had multiple scares this year, right? They were down 2 scores early on, I think even at halftime, to South Carolina a couple weeks back. They've not really looked too dominant. Their quarterbacks are doing okay, but this is a Georgia team that seems like they've sleptwalked through the month of September so far, while Michigan has had, in most people's, assessments, 3.5 out of their 5 games have been absolutely dominant, and maybe we could even say 4. Rutgers last week, I think there were just times that Michigan was sleepwalking themselves a little bit. But after yesterday's game, I think the general consensus to me is that Michigan's had a more impressive season than Georgia. How about this stat? I don't know if you guys saw this during the broadcast. Michigan yesterday becomes the 3rd team since they start keeping these records, and I'm sure I'd said ever on yesterday's show. It's not really ever. It's really since they've started keeping track of these stats since 1974 at least. 3rd college football team of all teams, 3rd one total in 50 seasons to score 30-plus points in their first 5 games while holding their opponents to 7 or less. The last time it's done was 30 years ago, the 1993 Florida State team that won the national championship. The other time that it's happened in those last 50-year seasons since 74, what do you think that was? 1979 Alabama. What'd they do? Checks notes. Also won the national champion. So Michigan in rarefied air over the last 50 seasons in college football, the most dominant 5-0 star as far as scoring 30 and holding their opponents to 7 or less. Historically, folks, this Georgia is a weak number 1. I saw this guy on Twitter, Big Game Boomer, who I think is kind of a schmuck, but I've seen him make points, good points once or twice here or there, so I'll give him some credit for this one. He said, Georgia this year reminds him of 2014 Florida State. If you guys remember, bringing back the Heisman Trophy winning Jameis Winston national championship team, they sleptwalked in a lot of close games. They get to the college football playoff. they lose like 56-21 against Oregon. He says he sees the same fate for Georgia. I don't disagree with him that much, although I do think Georgia probably has the most talent of any team right now. They've yet to really put it together to make a dominant team right now. It's a historically weak number one. If you think 5 games into the season for almost every single team, what Georgia has done, look back to the last 20 years, right? Who the number one team was at this point. I think you could say that Georgia is probably historically the weakest of all the number ones over the past 20-plus seasons. So I'll ask you guys this question. Go down in the comments. Let me know who should be number one. Michigan, Georgia, Texas, or Ohio State. Let me know what you guys are thinking. If I'm being a little overzealous with my tweet there, give me an M for Michigan if you agree with me. Georgia, type G. Texas, type T. Or if it's the Ohio State Buckeyes who were at a bye yesterday, give me an O down in the comments. While you guys are there, you saw me put that tweet out there for my screen. Love interacting with everybody on game day all throughout the week. I respond to people, hey, why we haven't done videos in a week and a half, etc. Usually the easiest way to connect me, I try to reply as much as I can, is on Twitter. Just don't DM me. It's at James Yoder. Link is down in the comments and the description of today's video. Later on, while we're going through these overreactions, I'm going to take you through Yoder's dogs. We didn't do any dogs last week, but that's okay. We've got a bunch of dogs. What is the dog award? What are we calling it here, Jack? I'm a dog. Yeah, we're giving some collars out to a handful of Michigan football players after yesterday's dominant win. Remember, with the dogs, if you get it once, you get it for the season. So it's not like, oh, J.J. McCarthy, he's a dog. He's already a dog. He can't be a dog again. Once you are dogged, it's like the mafia. You're a made man. You are a dog. Overreaction 2, I saw people saying on Twitter, this Michigan defense, this is the best defense in school history. This might be the best defense in college football history. I did see one person say that. And who do you think these best defenses are for Michigan? Obviously, the 2021 Michigan football defense, or even last year's in a lot of way. 2016 certainly is up there, although that team kind of lost the last 2 games, Florida State and Ohio State. 2018 was great for a stretch until they got to Ohio State. 2006 is really the first 10 years of the decade. That was the defense. And then 1997, over the last 30-ish years, those are the ones that people really point to for Michigan. Let's take a look at what this defense has done from a scoring perspective at these first 5 games, leading the nation in scoring defense. And I'll update you on Monday where they're at in a bunch of different stats across the NCAA. But 3 points, 7 points, 6 points, 7, 7. And I think only 13 of these points have come against the first-string Michigan defense. It's kind of a bummer that Nebraska, like several other games this year, scores their 1 touchdown or their field goal even against the third or the fourth stringers. 6 points per game so far through 5 games. The question out there is this the best Michigan football defense ever? The overreaction that I saw that people are putting out there. I think at this point, it's certainly, I think, the deepest right now that I've ever seen. I really think that you could put Michigan's only backup guys, only second stringers in there, and they would be averaging less than 10 points a game. They'd still be leading the college football in points per game on defense. That's how deep this team is. Whether or not they've got the highest end talent of 97 or 2006 remains to be seen. But here's what 97 did in their first 5 games. Crazy enough, as good as Michigan's done this year, 97 is actually still better through 5 games at least. 3 points they gave up in the opener to Colorado, a number 8 ranked Colorado team at that time. Next week, 3 points again against Baylor at home. Notre Dame, they had 21-14, so gave up double digits against Notre Dame, something this team has not done, only giving up 7 points max in their first 5. Then a shutout, which Michigan could have had multiple times this season, but hasn't yet, against Indiana, 37-0. And then Northwestern, back at home in 97, 23-6. So they're giving up 5.2 points a game, 26 points compared to Michigan's 30 points through 5 games. That team went on to give up only 114 points, leading the nation in 1997 on way to a national championship, 9.5 points per game. So as we think about, could this be the best Michigan football defense ever? I'll tell you what, given the dominance under Jim Harbaugh for the Michigan-Nebraska rivalry, I think one thing that I am convinced that is that Nebraska needs to vacate any claim they have to that 1997 split national title that was a complete farce is after Michigan's dominated them so much, went in their house, beat them 45-7 yesterday. Nebraska just needs to vacate any claim they do have to that title at this point. Today's show, folks, is sponsored by Prize Picks. You want to spice up your game days? Get started with Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a skill-based, real money daily fantasy sports game. If you're looking for a way For a more fun way to spend your game days, look no further than Prize Picks. How does it work, you ask? Here's how. You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they go more or less than their Prize Picks projections, you can win up to 25x your money on any entry. These are the picks we've got today. Jack and I put our heads together. These are the picks we're going with on an NFL Sunday. I didn't win yesterday, Jack. It was kind of a bummer. I had J.J. McCarthy, 220 yards passing. Didn't get that. Didn't really play much the second half. I had the Don only 16.5 yards receiving. Didn't get that either. That was kind of a bummer. I thought he was going to go for a huge game receiving. Did get Caleb Williams, so whatever. So here's what Jack and I came up with. Less for Tua than 274.5 passing yards. We went less. We also went less with Patrick Mahomes Sunday Night Football tonight, 275.5 yards. Went more for Ohio State scoundrel Justin Fields, 184.5 yards. The battle for the worst team in the NFL, the Broncos and the Bears, taking place this afternoon. We went with more for Justin Fields. Look, I have never really been a guy who has played games like this, and I've been loving Prize Picks the last few weeks, so I really recommend you guys check it out now. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use our code CLNS for a deposit match. That's PrizePicks.com/CLNS. Use that promo code CLNS for a deposit match. With Prize Picks, it takes less than 60 seconds to make your picks. Get a $100 first deposit match. PrizePicks.com/CLNS. You got to use that promo code CLNS. Is the offensive line back, baby? I don't know. They looked pretty damn good yesterday. Whether that was the whole team was just gelling, or in Game 5, a lineups change is all they needed to kind of be cohesive together and be the Joe Moore winning offensive line that we thought they could win for a third straight season. Here was the lineup if you didn't pay attention to this sort of thing. Transfer from Arizona State, Ladarius Henderson got the start at left tackle. Trevor Keegan, Drake Nugent, Zach Zinter there on the inside, same as always. Then Carson Barnhart started the first 4 games at left tackle. He shifted over to right tackle. Why, you ask? Well, Myles Hinton wasn't in the starting lineup, and I saw people saying that he came in at the end, but that's actually not true. Like, he's injured. I don't think this is true. I looked at the participation chart. No Myles Hinton, so the injury was clearly what happened. I don't think he came in at the end at all there. So injury, but I don't think Myles Hinton was playing that well. Now, I'll say this. I don't think Ladarius Henderson was really playing that well either. I personally don't. I don't think he was a road grader. I don't think he was crushing it. But it seemed that group was better than the group we've seen the first 4 weeks of the season, so it's tough to quantify. Henderson himself didn't look great, probably a little bit better than Hinton has done on the opposite side. I saw Henderson give up multiple times where his guy beat him, or J.J. McCarthy got hit when his guy came around the end. But as a group, they looked as good as they have all season by leaps and bounds. And we're right up there with the best of the offensive line the last 2 seasons. So let me know what you guys think. Grade the offensive line versus Nebraska. I'm going B+ to A-. Let's go A- because we're feeling in a frisky mood here on an Overreaction Sunday. I'm going A-. Let me know your grade for the offensive line with the new face Ladarius Henderson and Carson Barnhart shifting over to right tackle. How about Yoder's Dogs after Michigan, Nebraska yesterday? And I want to kind of take you through where we've been with the Dogs. If you guys haven't followed along, if you get your collar, you're a dog. You're a made man. You only get it once. It's like once you're in the club, you're in the club. So these are guys who are already in the club so far this season. J.J. McCarthy, Roman Wilson, Josh Wallace got the distinction first week. Then Blake Corum, Zach Zinter, Kenneth Grant, Mike Sainristil, Chris Jenkins a couple weeks later. And then I think we only gave against UNLV, or no, it was Bowling Green, the night game. The only one we gave new was Cornelius Johnson. Didn't do Dogs after Rutgers, so maybe 1 or 2 players might get slighted here. So those are the 9 players we have designated as Dogs so far in this 2023 Michigan football season. Let's take a look who gets the designation, the collar, after yesterday's win. Braden McGregor. Braden McGregor, folks, he is a dog. Got 1 sack, also tipped a ball at the line that was intercepted by Kenneth Grant. Braden McGregor, my man, congratulations. You are a dog. Next up, Kalel Mullings. Touchdown run for Kalel Mullings. Look, he's a 4th-year player. He's got 2 seasons left, though. He had a COVID season in 2020, redshirt, etc. He could play for 2 more years in this school, switching over to running back end of last year. Now he's the 3rd stringer. He's looking pretty strong, and some people are even saying this could have been an overreaction, that he could start for, he could be the 2nd running back over Donovan Edwards at this point. I'm not saying that, but he's making a case for himself to be the starting running back next year. That touchdown run breaking off tackles, 8 yards per carry yesterday. Khalil Mullings, you have got your collar, son. You are a dog. Josiah Stewart, the transfer from Coastal Carolina, had himself a ball game yesterday. Josiah Stewart has got a collar. I'm going to give you guys the stats really quick. 5 tackles of the team, 2 sacks. Josiah Stewart, my man, you are a dog. Keon Sabb, co-leader in tackles, 5 tackles yesterday, was all over the place, has played well this entire season. So this might actually kind of be in a lot of ways. He didn't make any spectacular plays yesterday, made a lot of really good ones. But Keon Sabb, I think, is kind of like a season-long dog. He has finally earned it. So Keon Sabb, dog. And last but not least, Carson Barnhart. Surprised I don't have him on there yet. We should maybe just group the offensive line together. We didn't. But Carson Barnhart moving over to right tackle and really, gelling this offensive line together against Nebraska. Carson Barnhart, you are a dog. So those are Yoder's Michigan football dogs after Michigan's 45-7 win over Nebraska. Now, next up, 4th biggest overreaction is Roman Wilson, All-American. J.J. McCarthy to Roman Wilson, the #1 pass-catching touchdown duo in all of college football with 8. Take a look at what Roman Wilson did yesterday. 4 catches for 58 yards, 2 touchdowns. What was insightful and intriguing about those 2 touchdowns is that both of them were kind of off broken plays, right? J.J. McCarthy just waited, threw it up off route to Roman in the back of the end zone, made a David Tyree catch that you see there off the Nebraska defender helmet. And then the other one, J.J. had to get flustered out to the left side through kind of across the grain, down the sidelines, hit Roman Wilson there. Wilson through 5 games so far this year, has 8 touchdowns. Only 326 yards. I actually had to fact check that. I'm like, gosh, it seems like he has more. That's only 65 yards per game so far this year. 8 touchdowns, though, are putting him in rarefied air, folks. To get in the top 10 for single season for Michigan football, he only needs 3 more this season, right? He only needs to get to 11, and he will be in the top 10, tied with Marquise Walker, Ty Streets, 1997 Michigan National Championship fame. This is 98. He had 11. And then Derek Alexander back in 92. The single-season record for Michigan and the Big Ten is 19. Desmond Howard, 1991. That's not that crazy. That's not that far off, I don't think. So one other thing to think about, too, is like Marvin Harrison Jr., right? Mr. All-American last year. He only had 14 touchdown catches. So Roman Wilson's 6 off of where Marvin Harrison was as a first-team All-American, best receiver in college football last year as a sophomore. Some other things of note, like guys who have had just stellar years. Chris Olave in 2019 for Ohio State, 12, okay? Going up this list of Ohio State. David Terrell, 13 touchdown passes as an All-American, second-team All-American in 2000 for Michigan. David Boston, okay? 13 in 1998 All-American. Braylon Edwards, 14 in 2003 as an All-American. So Roman Wilson is putting up some historic numbers. I mean, if these shake out over a 15-game national championship appearance season, that's 24 touchdown catches. Now, I don't think that'll happen, but certainly J.J. McCarthy and him have found a rhythm and have found that partnership in the end zone. And half of these touchdowns, I think 4 of the 8, have come on broken plays. So let me know what you guys think. How many touchdowns will Roman Wilson finish with this season, all in, end of the year? How many will he finish with? Jack, give me a quick prediction. What do you think? Jack says 19. I think it's a little aggressive there, Jack, but I'm going to say 17. So, Jack, this is one of these things. We should write these down, see who comes back. 19 for Jack. I'm going to say 17. I hope Jack's right and I am wrong, and that Roman Wilson ties or breaks that Desmond Howard 1991 Big Ten single-season record. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Next up, I think the Blake Corum for Heisman campaign, I think it starts now. What people were kind of speculating and saying and all this different stuff is that finally yesterday, Corum, even though he didn't have a huge game, was looking like the Blake Corum of old. They said in the broadcast, like, he was nervous the first few games that he was going to re-injure his knee or whatever it is. Okay, 93 carries, 611 yards. This is where he was, or this is where he is right now through 5 games. Is this where he is 5 games? This is last year's stats. 2022 or 2023? I can't remember. Yeah, so 2022 stats. No need to change that. The people understand. These are his 2022 stats through 5 games, 611 yards. So a little over 120 per game, 122 per game last year. And where is he at this year? The yards he's struggling at a little bit, clearly. First 5 of 2022, there they are right there, 93 carries, 611 yards, 10 rushing touchdowns last year. So Blake Corum so far this year, he didn't, put up huge rushing numbers. And last year he had the one game where he had like some odd yards. I want to pull it up really quick here. Last year against Maryland. So last season in fourth game, 243 yards, and then 133 against Iowa in the fifth game. So the touchdowns are right around pace with where he was last year. He's a little bit back on the yards, but this is the time of year once Blake Corum gets his flow, once the weather starts getting a little colder in the Midwest, I think you're going to see him continue to get 1, 2, or 3 touchdowns every single game going forward. So those 18 touchdowns he had last year are right within the wheelhouse of where he could be this year again. If he gets up there, breaks off 175 yards, a 200-yard game coming up here over the next month, I think we end in November with Blake Corum up there in the top 3 or 4 players in the Heisman Trophy, knowing what we know about Michigan and the offensive philosophy under Jim Harbaugh. But I'm going to ask you guys, will Blake Corum be a Heisman finalist? Really, they have between 3, 4, or 5 players, depending on how the votes shake out, as Heisman finalists. He should have been last year, even with the injury against Illinois. He was not. But let me know, will Blake Corum be a Heisman Trophy finalist? Give me a yes or no down in the comments. Keep overreacting on this Sunday morning. Michigan probably will remain 2 in the AP and the coaches poll when it comes out here in another hour or 2. But I am feeling that they're going to get many more first place votes. I think they had 1 or 2 last week. I think they're going to have probably a dozen, maybe 15 or so first place votes after yesterday's performance. So that's what I'm thinking here. One other note that I just want to address here while we're on the show is the concern that we didn't fit into this show that a lot of people have and talking. I certainly have. I had it last couple of weeks. Is where is Donovan Edwards? They got him going yesterday. He had 14 or some odd carries, but just didn't look like he had any pop. Although it was his best game, something doesn't seem right with Donovan Edwards for this team. So I want to keep it positive, but I'll probably break down Edwards' game, where he's at so far this season through 5 games later on in the week. One more reminder before we head out, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. 28,000 subscribers is coming up. We're at 27,846, need 154 more. I will have another video out on Monday, so make sure you guys subscribe and join us again then. Appreciate everyone watching here on a Sunday. Until I see you tomorrow, go Blue.